stage one of burnout is when we are very passionate, we're still super invested, but we have reached that point of starting to feel overwhelmed. It's really difficult to burn out from something that we don't care about. It's a chance that you are on that brink of tipping into beginning to burn out.
First warning sign is experiencing a high level of stress a lot of the time. So if we are feeling our bodies humming a bit from the stress and from the overwhelm, it's really something to self-reflect on. And if we are quite quick to become irritated, it's like we have a really short fuse.
Nothing you do is right and everything is becoming your fault. And you're in this constant state of wondering if what you do is good enough and you can't seem to get out of that state.
Podclass acknowledges the traditional and true custodians of the land we meet on here today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We're grateful to be here.
So no one told you teaching was gonna be this way. Your lesson plans are jokes, your patience broke, you're feeling in disarray. It's like you're always stuck in report writing, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your school year. But I'll be here for you.
When the students start to riot,
I'll be here for you.
even if your coffee's gone cold,
I'll be here for you. 'Cause you're there for them too.
Hello and welcome back to Podclass. You are joined as always by your hosts, me, Sky. Hello.
Me, Amanda. Hello.
yeehaw, it's Will. Hello.
You are.
Yee, and I cannot express this enough. We are ready
Into the heart.
We wanted to chat today about a topic that's kind of come up a lot lately. And I mean, it really features heaps in the education landscape when we're talking to teachers and educators. And this is the topic of burnout. And we wanted to kind of reframe it in a different way. So this one is the one about re-engaging after burnout.
I am taking notes. Okay. Fast is now in session.
I feel like the term burnout gets thrown around a lot, especially in teaching. It gets thrown around a lot in our landscape. And so what we want to do is talk about what is burnout, but also look at the stages of burnout to be able to recognize, actually, like, am I feeling burnt out or am I just not maybe in the right working space for myself? And also, how can we support ourselves if we are on that burnout journey? As someone who has absolutely been there, it can feel really challenging and really isolating. So I guess we want to start by sharing that if you are experiencing burnout or if you resonate with any part of this episode, please reach out and seek help and talk to the people that can best support you. But also that the reason you're feeling burnt out is a direct reflection of how much you care. It's not necessarily.
And that's so important, right? Because I feel like so often people will be like, oh, burnout is like, oh, that's just a cop out. Like, are you actually burnt out? It's probably just because you're not good at your job or you may be lazy or whatever.
Last week I gave a burnt and I nearly gave another burnt to like, you were not lazy.
Yeah. Or like, I think people who say that they've experienced burnout as well can often face that criticism or that critique of like, oh, well, you just haven't learned how to get your priorities straight, or you've clearly got really poor boundaries. And while some of these things absolutely could be true and may be tools that we can lean on to help support us with re-engaging, it's important to acknowledge burnout's a really real thing. And I think it will benefit us to kind of like break down, because it's not just like you go from zero to burnout. Right? No, it's kind of these stages, and being able to identify where you are at on your journey with burnout can help you tap into re-engage.
And I think I just want to touch on the caring element. Because you care so much does not justify to burn out continuously and not stop yourself and look after yourself too, just because you care so much.
Yeah, 100%. And so how does being on the burnout journey occur? Well, it occurs from giving more than we have to give time and time and time again without also giving back to ourselves. And so that might be because we are overworked, overstressed, overcommitted, incredibly passionate with the biggest heart for what we're doing. For whatever reason, it comes from giving more than we have to give for an extended period of time.
And so often, I know the three of us can definitely talk to it, there's sometimes when we actually acknowledge where we're at in the burnout process and take some time away and reflect and tap in and fill our buckets, the capacity that we have to give when we do return is actually so much more.
So much.
Because we are more aligned with ourselves, our mission, whatever it is. And that's where our young people benefit the most.
And I think like the reason why we're going to go through the stages is because the further along you get, the bigger the bucket gets, you need a refill.
Yes.
Like it goes from a Yeti to like a small tub of Bunnings to then a water tank across the stages.
So true. And I also think the bigger the bucket gets, sometimes the harder it can be to see what you need.
Yeah.
It's like your vision is fogged and it's cloudy because we are so drained and so empty. And so it's so ironic that right at the time where we maybe need to make some decisions for ourselves or need to shift some things in our world, it's the hardest to make that call for ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to go through the stages. What do they look like? What do they feel like? And how do we support ourselves if we're in any of these stages?
So should we get into it?
Stage 1, Sky.
Stage 1. No. So stage 1 of burnout is when we are like very passionate. We're still super invested, but we have reached that point of starting to feel overwhelmed. We're passionate, but we're overwhelmed. And it's really difficult, as you said, Amanda, already. It's really difficult to burn out from something that we don't care about. So if you are experiencing this and you are feeling like still so driven and so passionate about that teaching space, so committed to your students, so committed to the difference that you're making in the classroom, but you're feeling overwhelmed, it's a chance that you are on that brink of tipping into beginning to burn out. And so I guess there's a couple of warning signs that we can look out for, identify at this stage of burnout. So those warning signs.
Warning sign.
Warning. Honestly, it is. And it's like, if you are experiencing any of these, it's time that this is when we can check ourselves and be like, oh, okay. Because if I catch it now, instead of at stage 2 or stage 3 or stage 4, like you said, Will, it's so much easier to be able to re-engage and come back from. So if you are potentially in stage 1, some of the things you might be experiencing are low feelings of self-efficacy, which is kind of like that thinking of I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm not making a difference anymore, that kind of stuff. You might have started to develop maybe some negative coping strategies. And that could be anything from, I know for me, when I hit stage 1 burnout, one of the things that I do is I turn to like an unhealthy addiction with exercise and like having to move my body or hit a step count or whatever it is. And it's like, it's almost like I get my self-efficacy from doing that thing instead of from taking the time that I maybe need to rest. But it could be like anything, unhealthy habits, turning to like, a snack marathon when you get home from school in the afternoon, all those kind of things. And finally, the things that maybe we are normally interested in. So those like hobbies or interests that we have, maybe socializing with friends, finding that maybe we're canceling those things a little bit more, or we're not giving as much time to it, or maybe we're a part of a social netball team and we just haven't rocked up for training a couple of times a week. It's kind of where those hobbies, those interests have kind of started to take a backseat. So there's some of the warning signs to stage 1.
The stage 1 warning signs are not as obvious. They're the ones that are harder to see and just can creep into your lives. And we're going to call them the feathers.
Yeah, they're kind of, I like that.
The feathers.
But they're also kind of the ones too that it's like if you weren't aware of burnout being a thing, it would be really easy to just put it to the side and say, oh, I'm just tired this week.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a big week. It's just been a big month. But it's like when that's happening consistently, that's like, hello, time to face the feathers.
Face the feathers.
So that is stage 1. Stage 2 is feeling a sense of, it's kind of another layer, the next layer of burnout. And it's feeling a sense of being overwhelmed and potentially tapping into that, getting a bit cynical in our roles and in our...
I'm sure we can all think of someone maybe that we either work with or it's ourselves.
Yeah.
That cynicism, when that starts to creep in, we know.
And it's so interesting because right at this point when we're becoming more cynical, we actually have such a tendency in stage 2 to take on an unimaginable workload and to pour even more. And it's kind of like this cycle, this self-fulfilling prophecy of we have this unmanageable workload, we're pouring more in, so we're getting cynical and resentful, but then the unmanageable workload isn't changing or we're not changing
more frustrated by the small things that are happening that wouldn't normally frustrate us.
Yep.
But we're allowing them, now it just feels like too much.
Yep. Yeah. And I guess instead of kind of seeing the outcomes and the gifts of maybe what we're doing. We are having more focus on what are the responsibilities and the work that we have.
That negativity bias is like super obvious, I feel like, in this state.
Totally.
So
what are our warning signs?
warning. I'm going.
Everyone.
Yeah, I think so now.
Okay, great.
So first warning sign of stage 2 is experiencing a high level of stress a lot of the time. So if we are feeling, and I know we've probably all been there, of like it's just a little bit too much, but it's a little bit too much all of the time. And it kind of feels like our body's humming a bit from the stress and from the overwhelm. And that's actually an elevated nervous system, which has a really, really strong impact on our physiological and our psychological and emotional state. So if we're experiencing that, this next one is an absolute like
Banger.
a banger for level 2, and it's a real sign of it's really something to self-reflect on. And it's if we are quite quick to become irritated. Now, this can be, it's like we have a really short fuse, right? Whether it's at work, whether it's with a partner, at home, with children, with our students, whatever it is, if we've noticed that lately we've had a short fuse, and it's actually been a short fuse for a consistent amount of time, and it might be that we rock into the day and our fuse is pretty decent, but by morning tea every day, that fuse is quite short and so many things irritate us. That is such a sign.
And can I also add there, that's also when we tend to reach for those really quick dopamine hits or fixes when we're feeling that irritated. So it might be that we go for like a really sugary snack, or we have like a bit of a bitch or a whinge to a work colleague about something that's happened, because it's like that connection piece and you get a dopamine hit from, bonding over something like that. And it's like they're also not healthy ways to deal with that when we are feeling this way.
Part of this one is feeling like you just have no time for friends or family.
Yeah.
Like you'd love to see them. You'd love to do the commitment.
Oh my God, guys, I think I'm in stage 2 of burnout.
I've been so silent because I'm just sitting there reflecting on every single moment I've been in stage 1 and every moment I'm in stage 2, and I may be in stage 2.
I'm feeling similarly. Anyway, so this is really just our podcast for us to have a check-in with ourselves on our own burn.
We'll be listening
So
to this in the
stage
day.
2 warning signs
Yeah.
are sticks.
Ooh.
You can notice them a little bit more.
Yeah,
One
those at the start, they kind of give you a little bit of a tickle.
Yeah,
And
it's a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The stick just fell out of the tree here.
Okay. Okay, it's a bit more than a feather.
Yeah.
Another one is another stick for stage 2 is feeling guilt. Like even though we are giving so much and doing so much, and we're not, taking the time away from work to see our friends or our family, we're still somehow feeling guilty that we're not doing enough.
Yeah.
Absolute kicker of a sign.
Love it. Stage 3, Wilson.
Stage 3 is our cynical and approaching exhaustion. This is we are breaking point, close to breaking point, not quite there yet. And you feel like nothing you do is right, and everything is becoming your fault. And you're in this constant state of wondering if what you do is good enough, and you can't seem to get out of that state. I think but it doesn't just stay at school. It just doesn't stay at work. It's also coming home with you at this stage.
Is this where we need to go? Warning signs.
Oh.
Warning.
Warnings.
Oh my gosh. What a happy.
What do we think? What do we think the warning signs of stage 3 are? We are now isolating ourselves all alone in and outside of work because we think that every distraction or every interaction isn't moving us forward, or it's going to end up in us being wrong, and we just decide to avoid that by isolating ourselves.
And it's like we don't have the energy or the quote unquote time to deal with other people. So instead we lean into isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have this constant paranoia of like we're doing something wrong, or we're being told off, or nothing that we do is right. We have this fear that we're going to get sent to policy, whatever it may be. And so we almost don't step out of the lines at all, and we aren't being productive at this point either. And the final warning sign is we are now no longer engaging in any professional development because we have declared that we would like to be alone.
War. No.
We would prefer to be alone because we have too much work on.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, well, what's the point? Because you are so cynical maybe about the profession and about what's going on. So you have nothing positive to say. It's like, oh, this just feels like another ticker box. And this is really where we see that cynicism start to play. So we've had feathers, we've had sticks. Did you decide what these warning signs were?
Yeah, I think it's going to be like a brick, but not a brick
Oh
that you're
my
gonna not a brick to get thrown, but like
The
a
brick
step.
falling out of a tree as well.
We're just stubbing
You've just stubbed your toe.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're stubbing our toe. Okay, it's a bit more than a stick.
And one more stub of the toe is feeling like we'll never ever achieve our goals in this stage 3 of burnout.
Yeah, that's so true.
We are no longer ambitious and we no longer have any trust in ourselves to be able to get there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I don't love that, but I love that as a warning sign. Yeah, really good flag. So stage 4, which is kind of our final stage of burnout, this is really where we hit that breakdown point. This is complete exhaustion. This is can't go on. This is like basically when you get to this stage, there's kind of 2 options. You either quit and have some time away, or this is what we really want to focus on, is that we recommit. We maybe take some time and then we make the active choice to re-engage. But this is like in this stage, this is where it's really just spread throughout your life. It's no longer just about work. It's really challenging your personal wellness. It's really impacting you in your day-to-day, the way you show up.
Really challenging your personal relationship. Yeah, not just your professional relationship.
I think the best way to describe it is like stage 4 just feels like you're in survival mode.
Oh,
Where
100%.
it's like we are just trying to survive.
Just make it through the day.
And it's constant. It's like every single day, whether it's like from the moment that you wake up to the moment you go back to bed, it's like,
Yep.
can I make it through today?
Yeah.
So some of the warning signs,
Warning. Sorry, I almost forgot that one.
we'll just fly through these. Feeling exhausted like every day, not just school days, but like holidays, weekends, it kind of just creeps into your entire life. Having like quite an uptick in feeling like you need to use your, mental health days or sick days or whatever, because you just can't go on unless you have some time off.
Please use them before you get to stage 4.
Yeah, yes, that's what they're there for. Absolutely. Having like a real lack of positivity or anything really good to say about either the profession, your career, or even your personal life, which is a tough pill to swallow and realize. And maybe this is also when, because our body keeps the score, right? Our body is so intuitive to how we're feeling. But this thing of like, we are likely to maybe, I don't know, get sick more often or have headaches or get a cold or whatever it is. And I really believe that that's our body's way of going, you need to slow down.
Something isn't working.
And I mean,
This is the trucks.
I had burnout when I was
The truck.
I know that I was in stage 4 of burnout when I was working up in Darwin at some point, and I broke my ankle. Like I went to a gym class in the morning, did a box jump, stepped down, ankle rolled, and ended up being in a moon boot for 12 weeks. And I know that was my body's way of being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, slow down.
100%.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And for me as well, when I've experienced stage 4 of burnout was when I was living remote in Arnhem Land. And I had let myself be in that state for a prolonged period of time. And things also just weren't getting easier. There was a lot of challenges in the community as well. And my thing was I had constant sickness, constant stress, and it was really challenging. And we talk about at that point we need to quit or recommit. And I actually left the community for a period for 6 months because I needed that for myself when I realized where I was at. But we don't want that to need to be the case if that's not what we want to do. So to move away for a period of time is okay. But what does it look like if we're listening to this episode and we really relate to one of these stages? How do we shift things? How do we recommit?
This is a great point, and this is really what I want to focus on. So there are some things that we can do. We don't have to ever get to stage 4. We can identify it early.
If you feel the feathers, you don't need to feel the sticks. You feel this. Well, if you don't feel the sticks and you ignore the sticks, you're going to stub your toe. And if you still ignore it, then you're going to get hit by a truck.
Honestly.
Stage feels like getting hit by a truck.
Literally, you ignore the feathers, you ignore everything in between.
Honestly,
Yeah. So what can we do? So practical strategies. I feel like one of the first ones, like for me personally, and I know that this has resonated with a lot of educators that we work with, is actually having the space to reconnect with why we do what we do. We call it just connecting back in with your why. it should not be, need to note here, your why should not be a justification for working harder every single day.
I've been
But it
so many
should be-
times, and that's how I just
Yeah, right. But it should be that intrinsic motivator. It's that thing, right, that is like, oh, this is why I do the work that I do. And this is why I got into teaching in the first place, or whatever it is. And then we can reconnect in with that place in ourselves. It can give us that kind of peace. And the smaller kind of issues that are maybe starting to feel like big issues don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah. I know for me, like, there was probably a year and a half ago that I was starting to go up the stages, and I would literally go through a walk around the lake, and I had this podcast, and it wasn't even a podcast, it was the most random old lady saying, for a 5-minute like reset, it was like, feel your toes, feel your ears. But it was just like, what it did is just like reset my body. And sometimes it is only just 5 minutes. Sometimes it's only 5-minute breaks that you need to just add.
And if you feel like you don't have 5 minutes, Wilson, what have you got to do?
You've just got to make them, because if you don't have 5 minutes, you don't have a life.
Exactly right. Woo! You've heard it here first. If you don't like 5 minutes,
It's a 5-minute sacrifice for how much return, right?
Yeah.
totally.
If you're a business, you're putting 5 minutes in to get like
Yeah.
10x, 20x.
I think as well, there's something we can implement in acknowledging what actually sits inside our circle of control with what we're facing. And if something doesn't sit in our circle of control, we can use the phrase, it's not mine. If it's a parent and they're frustrated about something that we literally have no influence over it, it's not mine. Like, I'm sorry, but it's not mine. If it's
Fixing the entire curriculum,
not,
that's not mine.
yeah. Like, these little things that can really weigh us down, really contribute to that overwhelm. If they're not ours, if they're not in our circle of control, they're weighing us down for absolutely nothing, because we have no capacity to influence them.
Which I think ties really nicely into the next tip, which is if we are feeling overwhelmed, think to ourselves, what is one thing right now that I can either drop, defer, or delegate?
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
You can have it.
Thank you.
I'll give it to you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Skizzle.
Drop, defer, or delegate.
And I think, as we started the episode with, if you've been listening and you really connect to one of these stages, what's so important, first of all, we know is acknowledging and becoming aware with where we're at, and who do you need to talk to about that, and what support do you need with that? Because these are little strategies that can support us to navigate it, but there really is other things going on. And so we maybe need to make that appointment, or we maybe need to make that phone call to that trusted person and have the conversation and share, like, hey, I'm actually not in the best place. Like, I'm pretty burnt out right now.
And we're really
talk about it.
And we're really fortunate in Australia through our Medicare system and through our GP that we can access 10 free mental health sessions every single year. Like, we can do that every 12 months. And that is there. That's a resource. Use it. It's such a fantastic
Like
thing.
your sickly, use it.
Yeah.
Use it all.
Yeah.
And I think in teaching, nearly, so it feels like more than any other career, boundary creep is huge. So potentially what's occurred is over a 1 to 6 month period, or even 12-month period, there's slowly been boundary creep, until our boundaries have actually expanded so much. And that is why we've maybe hit this stage. So revisiting our boundaries and our commitments professionally and personally is really valuable.
And so I feel like the big takeaway here, or the big message kind of to remember, is that burnout doesn't mean it's over, right? It's not like, that's it, put everything in the bin, I can't do it anymore. It's not. Burnout, and particularly we can pick it up in those early stages, it's just a sign that it's time to reconnect, realign, and that we are really overdue to just check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
And whether you've got a bucket or whether you've got a water tank that needs filling, the facts are that isn't going to change unless we start to put some water in there. So if this has supported you with some realizations, start a conversation, make a call, take 5 minutes, listen to the person who's going to tell you to feel your feet in a podcast, on a walk around a lake, whatever it is. Look after yourself, because you're too important to not.
Yeah.
We are Podcast, and you will not be having any foot to body 5-minute reflections with us. But on your next podcast, you may.
By request, maybe we'll try it next time.
We're doing so on the next week.
Bye. See you next week.
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.
Thanks so much for tuning into Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, we would adore it if you could go on to Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and leave us a review. 5 stars would be lovely. We would love to get this podcast into as many ears as possible so we can help and support as many people as possible who help young people. And if you're not already doing so, please go along to Instagram and follow us at podclass.aus.